I'm Ron Richmond. I'm an artist. I live here in Mount Pleasant, Utah. I've been doing art for about 18 years full-time, and it's something I always wanted to do since I was just a kid, so I feel like in a way I'm living my dream. To try and make a living as an artist, you have to be fairly independent and thick-skinned, because everyone all through your life is telling you that it's too hard to be an artist, you can't make it. Your family, parents, siblings, they try and encourage you to do something else. I even had professors say, if you can think about doing anything else, if you can picture yourself doing anything else, do it. But if you can't, then try and make it work. And I probably thought about some other things, but I just kept coming back to art because that's what I wanted to do since I was younger. I guess the bottom line is I don't do it just to try and be independent. It's just something that's been in me all my life, and I can't imagine myself doing anything else but art. I come from pioneer stock here in Utah. Some of my ancestors settled Utah, but I'm drawn to this area. I love the people here, although sometimes I feel like a fish out of water. Sometimes you say you're an artist and people kind of look at you funny, like they have no idea what that means, and they're wondering which field of farming is artist. One of the most common questions an artist will get is where the inspiration comes from, and it never comes from the same source. Every time it comes from all different kinds of places. But one pattern I have noticed for sure is that I get inspired for the next, say, 3 or 4 paintings when I'm working on one painting. I'll be working at the easel, and by working on that painting, I will get an idea for the next 3 or 4. The hardest thing is when you sit in front of a blank canvas, sort of like a writer sits in front of a blank piece of paper at a typewriter, or I guess these days a blank screen and a computer, and it's hard to get started. But once you get started and the ideas start rolling, usually the best source of inspiration is work. More specifically, I get inspiration from things I read, from questions I have about life. I also like to think about what makes people tick, because I guess I know sort of what drives me and what gives my life meaning, and I'm always curious about what gives their life meaning. And I think I draw inspiration from questions like that. When I was in school, I loved to paint landscape, and I love the landscape. I love being outdoors. But as I was in college, I started thinking I wanted my paintings to be about more than just pretty pictures. And so I started altering the landscapes, and maybe abstracting them would be one way of putting it. So I started changing the landscapes, putting man-made things in the landscape, or changing the landscape to look like it had been altered by man or something. And from there I just slowly evolved to where they weren't even landscapes anymore, or I would put objects that weren't normally in a landscape, like a chair, or the landscape would look like a checkerboard or something like that. And it slowly evolved to where now the landscape, if it's in the painting, is a very minor part of the painting, and the object or objects in the foreground, that's the focus of the painting. That's what I want want the painting to be about. Sometimes I've even eliminated the landscape to where now they're just still lifes, interior scenes, or things sitting on a table. So I've made sort of this full journey of from landscape to an altered landscape to still life, and now I've even been including more figures in the painting, so hands or people in the paintings with the still life. I often will put something that seems like it's out of context. In other words, they don't really make sense in our natural world. I'm always interested in getting people to see the work and ask questions. Some people don't want to spend time with my paintings, or with a painting or a work of art that makes them think or makes them stop and wonder what it's about. I guess in a way I'm after those people who want to take the effort to wonder and ask themselves why this is this way. In the last year, I've been doing a series of paintings where I've been combining still life with the human figure, sometimes live figures, but sometimes figures that are in other paintings. In other words, I'll use a painting from an old master, and I'll paint that in the background of my painting as if a still life, a table with some bowls or a glass vase, is sitting in front of, say, a Titian or a Botticelli or some other painting in the background. I've really enjoyed this series. It's a way of paying homage to the old masters, because I get to copy part of their painting in the background of my painting. And then at the same time, I make it my own by putting something in front, or some kind of still life object, or an interior space where this painting would be shown. For the most part on the larger paintings, I paint on canvas. I also, on a lot of the smaller paintings, use a board or a wood panel, which is nice because you can sand it, you can scrape it, you can be a little rough with that wood panel, and you can get a little different look and a surface with those wood panels that you can't get with a stretched canvas. On the stretched canvas, you have to be a little more careful so that you don't ruin the canvas or poke a hole in it. So I like both. I like both methods, and they both offer a different kind of challenge in the end. I usually tone the white gessoed canvas with a wash, a turpentine wash with some color in it, so that I'm not just starting on a blank white canvas when I actually start to paint or draw. Sometimes I'll draw actually before I do that, but one way or another I'll put that wash over the canvas. And if you've ever had a blank piece of paper, sometimes that's the hardest thing to get started on. But if you have something there, some kind of a wash or a pattern or a color, you can work against that, and it gives you something other than just a bright white canvas. When I start with a turpentine or a mineral spirit wash, it gives me a middle value, not black, not white, but right in between, kind of a middle gray. And that's helpful too, because then you can work both directions on that. You can push your darks darker and your lights lighter, and the tone of the canvas becomes your middle tones, and it's a good way to start out. I often paint in layers, so I'll start the first layer pretty loose and with a lot of energy and fast and soft edges, and as I progress through each layer of the painting, I get a little more detailed, a little more in focus, and a little more refined, but still trying to keep some of that freshness and the loose edges and the quick gestural strokes of the first layer or two. Sometimes you can kill a painting by overdoing it and losing some of the freshness that you get in the first layer or two. So I like to try to, as I work through those layers in the painting, get more refined in certain areas of the painting, maybe where the focus is going to be, but leave some of the outer edges loose and out of focus and unrefined. I find that gives the paintings a little more variety, so that there's different degrees of finish throughout the painting. It also draws the eye into the middle of the painting if around the edges the painting isn't as focused or refined, and then as the middle part of the focus is more refined and more layers and more detail, it draws the viewer's eye into that part of the painting. Another question that I have, and I think all artists have, is when is a work of art finished? When is a painting finished? There's no set formula. People often ask me, when will you be done with that painting? I don't know, is the answer, because I don't know when it's going to be finished. It could be a week from now. I could work a whole week on a painting and still not be finished, or all of a sudden I could do just a few things to it tonight and it would be finished. And it would you just sort of have to listen to it and let the work of art speak to you, if that doesn't sound too strange, and be in tune with when it's finished, because you certainly can overpaint a painting if you just aren't paying attention. You can ruin it by going too far. So when is a painting finished? I never know until it just sort of happens. I hope that my paintings evoke questions that people might ask themselves, those same kind of questions when they look at my work. Hopefully they ask a question, what is the painting about? But maybe they'll start thinking about other questions, like what is life about, or is there meaning to all this? Or are we just kind of by chance stuck here on this planet somehow? And I don't know. Those things intrigue me. So some of those things inspire me to paint. I'm Ron Richmond, and I'm an artist.